communication protocols. Okay, so in the category of network communication protocols, the first protocol we're going to look at is going to be called HTTP. Okay, so hypertext transfer protocol. Hypertext transfer protocol is going to be abbreviated as what? As HTTP. Okay, so what is the HTTP protocol? So an HTTP protocol is a protocol that is used to transfer web documents. Okay, so this one facilitates communication facilitates communication or transfer of websites. Okay, facilitates communication or transfer of websites between browsers, okay, web browsers and servers. So when computers are communicating in HTTP, they're going to be transferring information related to websites between browsers and what? And servers. That's all this protocol does. It has to do with the transfer of websites between a web browser and what? And a server. So your phone might be here. We have the internet. Then we have another server that's keeping website here. So if you want to access the Google page, what will happen is that you're going to send a request to the server, and the server will send you back a web page for Google. That is what will happen. So this is your phone. This is the internet. This is a server. Okay. So for this communication to happen while you're able to access any website on your phone, you're going to be using the HTTP what? The HTTP protocol. So that's what it does. So after that, the HTTP protocol works on port what? It works on port 8 by default. Okay, in its communication. Then it has no encryption. So here information is not secure because there is no encryption. So if you send a text, if someone interrupts the communication here, if they're hackers or some phishing pages or anything, information can easily be intercepted in this communication and people will see the actual information that you're sending because there is no encryption of any kind to protect the information that you're transferring in HTTP. Okay. The protocol that we're going to look at is going to be called HTTPS. Okay, HTTPS. So HTTPS stands for hypertext transfer protocol, and the S is for secure. So it will mostly be written as secure hypertext transfer protocol. Okay, so what does this protocol do? So just like HTTP does everything that HTTP does. So what does this protocol do? Okay, so it's used to transfer websites. Transfer websites between web browsers. Transfer websites between web browsers and servers. Okay, this is what happens. Now, what's the difference between HTTP and HTTPS? HTTP, the difference is that HTTP first of all is going to be running on port 443. Okay, if not 433. So it's going to be running on a port away from that's not 80. So it doesn't run on port 80 to start with. Then the biggest major difference is that with HTTP you have encryption. Encryption of data. Okay, so what will happen is that here you have encryption of what? You have encryption of data, meaning all the information that you send via HTTPS, the information is going to be ciphered, is going to be hashed. So as a result, even if the information is interrupted with, people can't directly read the information that you're transferring. So to do this, it uses two protocols. It uses something called secure socket layer. Okay. Yes, secure socket layer, or abbreviated as SSL. Okay, it's also for encryption. Sometimes it will use another protocol known as transport layer security. transport layer security, or TSL. Okay, so HTTP is used to transfer web pages or websites or web pages between web browsers and servers. It runs on port 443. It does encryption, and the encryption works through the secure socket layer protocol and also the transport layer security. Okay, so the difference between HTTP and HTTPS is that HTTP has no secure, it's not secure, but HTTPS is secure using what? Encryption through SSL and TSL. So those are the main differences. So the third protocol that we're going to look at is going to be known as TCP protocol. So what is TCP? TCP first of all stands for transfer, okay, transfer control protocol. So TCP stands for transfer control protocol. So what is actually TCP or transfer control protocol? So TCP, what TCP is? TCP, okay. So TCP is a connection oriented, okay. So it's a connection oriented. So it's a connection oriented transportation protocol or transport protocol. So meaning with TCP is just used to transfer information from one node to another. It's a connection-oriented transport protocol. So the first property you should know about TCP is that TCP is connection-oriented. Okay? So when you say connection-oriented, what do we mean? Connection-oriented, we mean that for TCP to be able to transfer any form of information, the two nodes that are involved in the communication have to connect. Okay? They have to connect. So this one will check if this server is on, and this server will check. So this node A will check if node B is on, and B will check if node A is on, and then therefore there has to be some sort of connection before any sort of transfer of information can occur. Okay, that's why it's called transport or connection oriented. So connection oriented meaning there has to be a connection before any transfer of information. Then after it's connection oriented, you have to realize that it's reliable. Okay, why is it reliable? Because all information is only transferred if there's a connection between nodes. Okay, so after it's reliable, what other things should you realize about the TCP? So TCP is also stateful. Okay, so what does stateful mean? Stateful means that it keeps track of the conditions of the network. It keeps track of the changes in the network. Okay, keeps track of the status of the network. Okay, so it will keep all the mini details about the network, the IP address of the source, IP address of the destination, the connection orientation, is it secure, is it not secure? So it's stateful. It keeps on checking the status of the network when it's doing the transfer. Okay, so that's what a TCP is. So it's just a connection oriented transport protocol. It's connection oriented, it's reliable, it's stateful. The thing is that it also has what? It has error checking. Okay, checks errors. Okay, then also it is ordered. Ordered means that the order in which packets are sent is the order in which packets will be received on the destination. So if from the source packets are sent in a certain manner, they will arrive in that same order. Okay, so when you're using TCP, you can be sure that TCP is going to be connection oriented, reliable, stateful. It's going to checks errors, or it has error checking, and then it also it has an ordered way of sending packets and receiving packets. So that is what TCP is. The fourth protocol that we should be aware of, is the UDP protocol. Okay, so what is the UDP protocol? To start with, UDP stands for User Datagram Protocol. So UDP stands for User Datagram Protocol. So UDP stands for User Datagram Protocol. So what is this User Datagram Protocol? So So what will happen is that UDP is also a transport. It's a transport protocol, just like TCP. But the difference is that UDP is a connectionless. Okay, it's a connectionless. So it's a connectionless transport protocol. So it's a connectionless transport protocol. So what does this mean? For UDP, UDP is connectionless, meaning when two nodes want to communicate using UDP, they don't need to connect. Okay? They're connectionless. So you don't need to connect any kind of anything between nodes for communication to happen. Even without a communication, packets can just be sent and received. Okay? So this one is unreliable. Okay? Because there's no connection, so you can't track whether the packets reached the destination or they didn't reach. Okay? So this one is not stateful. So it doesn't keep track of the conditions of the network. So no error checking also. No error checking of any kind. It will not check any errors of any kind. So that's what UDP is. So what is UDP mostly used for? So UDP, examples of the usage of UDP. So UDP is mostly used in streaming applications. So streaming things like YouTube. YouTube is going to be using UDP. Okay. So streaming games. So video chats, video calls, voice notes, okay, things like this. So whenever you're streaming on YouTube, you're going to be using the UDP protocol. Okay, so both TCP and UDP are transport protocols, but however they are different. They're different depending on how they handle information. One is connection oriented, one is not connection oriented. The other one is stateful, the other one is not stateful. The other one is reliable, the other one is not reliable. The other one has error checking, the other one has no error checking. Okay. So the other one has an ordered way of sending packets, the other one has an orderly way of sending packets. Just sends packets anyway, and it doesn't care whether the packets have reached or not. Okay. So the fifth protocol that we're going to look at is a protocol known as BGP. Okay. So the BGP protocol. What's interesting about the BGP protocol? So BGP stands for Border Gateway Protocol. Okay. Stands for Border Gateway Protocol. Stands for Border Gateway Protocol to start with. So when is this BGP protocol used? So BGP protocol is used to control how packets, okay? So controls how packets are routed. How packets are routed. Packets are routed when systems or network systems or when networks are implemented using different topologies. Okay, so that's the purpose of BGP protocol, the Border Gateway Protocol. So it controls how packets are routed when networks are implemented using different protocols. So here, if you have a bus topology, this network is using a bus topology, okay, and nodes are connected in this bus topology, and then this other network is using, let's say, a star topology, like this. And then let's also assume that maybe there's another protocol here. Let's say we're going to use a tree topology. We have a tree here, another network that uses a tree. Okay, so these are separate LANs. So you have LAN 1, you have LAN 2, you have LAN 3. So if a packet has to circulate through these networks like this. Okay, so there's a connection between these networks that are built in using different topologies. So if a packet wants to cross from this network to this other network, meaning BGP is going to facilitate the communication of how packets are going to transfer, because these networks are developed in what? They're developed in different networking topologies. So that's where BGP comes in, or border gateway protocol. It helps you to facilitate, controls how packets are transferred, how packets and the details are transferred when networks that are in communication are built using what? Using different protocols. So this one, it connects LANs, connects local area networks.